Hey there, bookish besties. Welcome back to my channel. I hope your day is going amazingly. For our check-in of the day, I actually have 3 current reads because 2 of them are buddy reads. Sorry about that. I am reading The 100 Day 21 with my friend Princess Central Reads if you want to go check her out. And I'm about 100 pages into that. I am also reading Winter's Wrath by Emma K.C. Coet, and I am 82 pages into that. These were pretty new buddy reads, but this is the sequel to Summer's Revenge by her. And then my own personal read, I am currently reading my arc of The Midnight Train by Matt Haig, and I am, let me see, I am 87% into that. It is a lot of current reads for me. I usually only read one book at a time, so it does feel a little strange for me, but because they're buddy reads, I go a little bit slower because I want to match the pace of the person I'm buddy reading with. So it's taking me a while to really get there, but I'm loving them and I'm going to keep reading those, and you will see another update next week so you'll know what if I finish them. Now let's just get into today's video, which is going to be my April reading recap. I feel like April really flew by. I got 2 less reads than I have any other month this year so far, and it wasn't even like a short month. So let's talk about each of those reads and whether I'd recommend them, if I like them, etc., etc. The first book up will be Seasons of Glass and Iron, which was a 3.75 star rating for me. This one is a short story and poetry collection that I thought had a lot of feelings in it. It centers around femininity, womanhood, and also a lot of messages about immigration in some powerful ways. Some of these stories were easily 5 stars on their own. They really hit well, but I felt like the collection was a little uneven because there were a few that just did not land for me or did not have as powerful of messages that brought my rating down a little bit lower. I had the audiobook from this one from Macmillan Audio, and I do think that the narrator was really great and matched the style of this book well. I just feel like this would have been a better read for me if I had the physical, just because with the poetry, I feel like poetry is always better to sit with it and take your time with it. And if I want to take my time with this, I would have to rewind and re-listen to it. And that's just a little bit more difficult than having my eyes on the page, taking my time with each line. Overall though, I really enjoyed it. I do recommend it, and I'm curious to read more by the same author. Next up would be West of Wicked by Nikki St. Croix, and that was a 2.25 star rating for me. I think this is the lowest rating that I gave this month, which makes me nervous to talk about it because I don't really like giving bad reviews. But this is a retelling of the story of Oz, and I love retellings. I love a fresh take on an older story and bringing that to life again. Unfortunately, this retelling just didn't land for me. I thought there were some pretty unique elements that she tried to implement into there, and I could see at times where she was trying to flesh out or create a new world around that. But I felt like at times it was just a little disorienting that she was creating this new world, and there were other moments that I felt like she was clinging too closely to the original story, that it made it feel like I was switching between the 2 books rather than reading one cohesive story. That wasn't the biggest issue I had with the book. The biggest issue I actually had with the book was the pacing. It felt very slow and dull and overly descriptive to the point where I ended up zoning out a couple times, and my instinct when I zone out is to go back on the audiobook because I don't like missing things. So I would go back and then I'd re-listen to it, and it's just nothing was of importance anyways, which just made me annoyed that I even went back for something that doesn't have any importance to the story. There was also a lot of perspectives and a lot of jumping around from the different perspectives, which made me feel like I couldn't really fully settle in and enjoy any of those characters to their fullest or connect with them properly. That said, the ending twist was really interesting and really pulled me in. I just don't think that that's enough to get me to read book 2. Next up is Summer's Revenge by Emma K.C. Coet, and this was a 5-star rating for me. If you paid attention, I am reading the second book to the series right now at the beginning of this, where I do my little catch up of what I'm reading. I'm reading the second book of the series right now because it hooked me. This was really good. I did this as a buddy read with one of my friends, and we felt the same way about it. We loved the characters, we loved the plot. It was just so well done. In this story, we are following the royal siblings Isanfer and Skyansi. I hope I'm pronouncing those right. I've never actually said them out loud before this. And their parents were murdered when they were young. And now, when we start this book, they are about to go to war with the kingdom that they believe killed their parents. for revenge. It gets really messy. It's an adventure of friendship and revenge and so much more to it. I thought the characters were really well done. I love the sibling dynamic, and I really love the character Echo if you read it. And then I felt like there was a good arc to it, and I don't usually have a lot of comfortability or enjoyment reading from a male point of view, and it is written in the male brother's point of view. I guess that's repetitive. Male brother has to be a male. Anyway, I thought that it was so well done that that never even crossed my mind as something to bother me during this one. The world building was super rich without being overwhelming to the story, and I felt like the pacing was really good once you got into it. I also felt like the twists at the end were really well done, and I loved that the end made me satisfied with the conclusion to the story while also hooking me in for more for book two, because I feel like sometimes it's either one or the other with an end of a book, and I felt like I was both satisfied and ready to jump into the second book. I will be continuing the series as I already am, and I would recommend it. Next up is a graphic novel arc I received, and that is Names and Faces by Lise Hook, and that is a 5-star rating for me. This is a collection of personal stories about race, identity, and living outside of the norm. It is both powerful but really easy to read and get through as well. The first story about names really stuck with me, just about how much of our identities can be tied into a singular word attached to us, and how much different things it affects in your life to be named something. Each story kind of discovers a different angle of identity and explores that with our author, and I felt like it was really well done in a way that I both learned something new and also connected very emotionally with the author through her experiences. The art is also really soft and expressive, which fits the tone of this book really, really well. And overall, I felt like this was a very easy book to read, but also emotionally hitting, and I would definitely recommend it. I love this read. Next up is Protect Your Energy, and that was a 3.5-star rating for me. This one I would highly recommend, especially if you are feeling burnt out. This one is about self-care, giving yourself grace, and unlearning the constant need to be productive, so very healing vibes all around. I had this on the audiobook form from the Macmillan audiobook influencers, and this book includes some guided meditations and even some yoga practices that work really well in the audiobook form to really ground me and make me feel connected to it. However, that being said, I am kind of learning that I'm not an audiobook for nonfiction learner in the way that I thought that the messages were really great, but I wasn't really retaining anything because it was said once and then we moved on to the next thing. And I usually, with nonfiction books, always annotate them. So being able to sit with it and highlight it worked really, really well for me when I do read nonfiction books. And since I only had this one in audiobook form, I feel like my rating was a little bit skewed because I had that experience. And I think that, like I said, the yoga practices and the meditation work really well in that form. And I think this would be great as a interactive, both audiobook, physical form combo. And I think that's probably what I will do if I reread this book and re-rate it, because it has both of those. However, I didn't have as good of an experience with the audiobook because I didn't retain the information and learn as much as I would hope to. Overall, I still think this was a very important book and very valuable book. I just don't think that I had the right experience with it. My next read was a cute little comic, and that is Wicked Spot Volume 1, and that was a 4.5-star rating. This one was very cute. It is a witchy sapphic comic, and I'm a little bit obsessed with it so far. It's definitely more of a fast-paced comic than my usual ones. I feel like we jumped right in and then we immediately just kept going and going and going, and there wasn't a lot of like stops for the more calmer, introspective, or softer moments, which was fine because I felt like this was more of a fun one than like a calm, cozy one. Our main character, Sadako, is a witch who has been a reclusive person for a long time, and she just discovered the world of social media and fashion, and she is very obsessed with all of that and very obsessed with her own looks and getting popular. And then we have Hanako, who has a little bit more of a backstory so far, and she has a little bit more emotional depth to her because of that. And she was a fan of the witch until she started calling herself a witch, and that triggered her. And so we have a different dynamic between them that's both like it used to be adoration and then it's hatred and all of that fun jazz. I think if all of the volumes were this fast-paced, I would have a hard time with it. I do want to see more slowed down moments in the future volumes, but so far I think it's really entertaining and I would recommend it. I thought it was really fun. Next up is We Burned So Bright by TJ Klune, and this was a 3.25 star rating. This one is a bleak little novella, and I had the audiobook from Macmillan again, and this one is kind of about what it means to feel grief and humanity at the end of the world. I don't think that this is my typical type of read, so I was very interested in it, and I was interested throughout it. It hits in a more introspective way of trying to understand how people deal with things, but I also had a few problems with it. I think my main issue was the pacing. We have a overarching storyline of our main characters, but I felt like a lot of the time was taken up by the people that they meet on the road and their journeys at the end of the world. And it felt more like the author wanted to write a short story about different people's reactions to the end of the world than one cohesive story of our main characters that they were trying to center around, you know what I'm saying? I just wish that we had had a little bit more of them woven throughout those stories instead of feeling more disconnected from them. The main characters were the most compelling part to me, so I felt a little disappointed that it wasn't until the beginning and the end that we really got enough of them. I do think that it wrapped up really nicely to make those emotional connections. I just was disappointed that there wasn't a cohesive line of them throughout. Overall, it wasn't a perfect fit for me, but I do think this is a pretty powerful story and I can see why other people would love it. Next up is Agnes Albert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett, and this was a 4.75 star rating for me. This was the Book Journalers Book Club pick for last month for April, and if you want to join that, let me know down in the comments, or you can message me on Instagram at @seas.library, because I absolutely love this read. I loved reading it with everyone in that group, and I love seeing everyone's journal pages for it. Anyways, let's talk about the book itself. This book was exactly the cozy, stress-free book that I needed at this time. It has so many cats, which immediately won me over, and the atmosphere was amazing. It felt like I was sitting by a fire wrapped up in blankets. It was so cozy and warm and comforting. Our main character, Agnes, is just so lovable. She is well organized, she is strong-willed, and she rescues stray cats, so what's not to love about her? And then we have Havelock, who is this chaotic, almost like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle vibes. He's very chaotic, and I loved every scene he was in. I loved his banter and the dynamic between him and Agnes. The writing felt very natural for this one, and the pacing was just perfect for a cozy read, and it just left me feeling really happy when I finished this book. Overall, I would 100% recommend this if you were looking for a more cozy, comforting read, and I know that I have a couple books from the same author that I'm excited to get to now that I have read this one. Next up is The Sun and the Star Maker, and this was a 3.5 star rating for me. This one gave me major YA fantasy nostalgia. It felt really beautiful at first because I felt like I was back in my old reading era where I read a lot of YA fantasy. And then that nostalgia kind of turned to predictability, and I started losing interest in this book really quickly when it felt like there wasn't a lot of fresh, unique takes in it. I always felt like I knew where this story was going, and even the high stakes moments didn't really have a lot of tension for me because I've read enough books like this that I knew exactly what was going to happen. There were still a lot of things that I liked about it. I thought there was a really good storytelling aspect. I just don't feel like it was used enough throughout. It was kind of more of a beginning, climax, and end usage for that aspect, and I thought it was a really strong aspect, especially to me who loves storytelling and the acts of storytelling, and I wish that that had been woven through a little bit more throughout it. The atmosphere was actually really well done. I felt like I could picture the place, even though I can't genuinely picture things because I have aphantasia. I think that's the right word. And I thought that the characters were fine. I just didn't connect to them super deeply in this one. Overall, it was an easy and enjoyable read, but I don't think it was for me as someone who has read a lot of it. I do think this would be a better recommendation to people who are maybe a little bit newer to the fantasy genre. Next up would be Her Hidden Fire, and this was also a 3.5 star rating for me. This book had a lot of ambition going into it. We have dragons, academia, romance, power structures, and class commentary, and it felt like there was a lot it was intending to get across. I respect that this book was trying to do a lot at once, and I thought that their themes of class and prejudice and all of those things were really strong in concept. Execution wise, though, this book just didn't really work for me. I don't think any of the characters were really likable to me. Like, there wasn't a single one that I can say, oh my gosh, I love that character, or even I like that character. And our main character, she felt a little bit immature at times for me, that I just couldn't really connect to her well. And I mean, more immature than a YA book should be. I think the strongest moments that I did enjoy of this book was where our main character was pushing back against people that were hurting her and standing up for herself, and it felt more powerful than anything else in the book, but I also don't feel like there was enough of those moments to fully actually be on her side or connect with her fully. The prose was also very heavy and overly detailed at times, which made it hard for me to fully connect to the story itself. I also would say that the world building felt a little bit underdeveloped for me. I wanted a little bit more history and context earlier on in the story to ground me to the story, and it felt like it came way late, and it felt like it wasn't fully connected to the story itself when it did come. I also felt like emotionally it was a little bit one-noted for me. I felt like it was a lot on the mistreatment of her, and I didn't really get a lot of connections with the characters in their relationships together, any other really emotional connection to the story other than that. I really appreciate what the author was trying to do here, and I think it is something that can be a really good book if it had those elements, because in concept, it is a really strong one. If I told people the concept of it and I was telling them about it, I feel like I could rave about that concept for a really long time. I just didn't enjoy the execution of it, and that might be just my personal experience, but it wasn't for me. Next up is Vile Lady Villains, and this one was a 4.75 star rating for me. This book was really, really good. It is a sapphic retelling where the characters Lady Macbeth from Shakespeare's and the Greek mythology character, I believe, Clytemnestra, meet, and it is a story about identity and narratives and taking control of your own story. I was immediately hooked by the concept alone, but the execution was just so much better. The main characters of the story are honestly amazing. We have Lady Macbeth, who is dealing with her guilt and ambition, and then we have Clytemnestra, who is unapologetic. She is angry and she is grieving. Putting these two characters together created very magnetic, intense dynamic that I just could not look away from. I also love how it pulls in other literary figures like Ophelia, and even bringing Shakespeare in as a character. The atmosphere is a little bit eerie, intense in the best ways, and the prose is very lyrical without being overwhelming to the story, but also really connecting it to those literature pieces that really connect us to the characters. I was really glued to the page with this one, and I thought it was beautifully done, both smart and haunting, and really powerful in its own ways. And I would highly recommend this one. I know that I want to get a finished copy for my shelf. Next up, we have The Last Starborn Seer, and this was a 3.75 star rating for me. This is an epic fantasy with a really strong premise. We have a cursed chosen one main character, heroine, who is trying to rewrite her fate with themes of prophecies and arranged marriage and just her own theme of identity throughout it. The concept behind this felt like it really carried me through it. I was really invested in seeing where this story was going to go. My only real struggle here, and I'm not saying this is like a bad thing, is that the world building is extremely complex and there's a lot of guides at the front, whereas I wish that it was more built into it to guide us slowly through that and give us the immediate examples of how that would work, instead of waiting till I see it in there and having to flip back and understand the terminology and stuff. Like, they have their own words for different things like days and things, which is amazing, and I think it's really well done. I just wish it was more woven through it than something that I had to keep referencing back to, because that pulled me out of the story a lot more. Our main character, Leilani, was a very interesting character, and I thought her arc was well done. I felt a little conflicted with her choices at times, which I think is the point of it, because it is not something that's supposed to be an easy decision. And I thought it was really well done. I felt connected to the characters and compelled to seeing what's going to happen with them. Overall, I think that one was a very solid read and worth reading, and I would recommend it if you like epic fantasy. It's just that you might take a bit to have to refresh your mind on what's happening there, because it doesn't ease you into it as much. And those are all the books that I read this month. I think it was a pretty good reading month. There were some books in there that I absolutely adored, and some that maybe I wasn't the right fit for, but still felt like they were good books. Let me know what you read in April and which one was your favorite down in the comments, so we can talk about what you read. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post. And until next time, happy reading!